Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, hello, hello. We are so excited today because we have Dr. Terry Wager, generator coaching and counselor on with us today. And he is amazing. Wait till you hear his story. He is an organizational psychiatrist and business strategist. He helps entrepreneurs and business owners align their inner and outer game to develop clarity, direction, gain more influence, and make fast international decisions, intentional decisions that generate rapid results. Because you make a decision, you got to do it, carry it through, and make it happen. Without further ado, let's bring on Dr. Terry Wager. Woohoo!
Thank you. It is good to see you. I'm glad to be here. So
Absolutely delighted to have you. It's so fun to get to know you better and better. You have the most amazing life and you've done so much with it. I'm so proud of you. I'm just like, wow, 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 wow. For folks who don't know you, do you want to go a little bit about, being born and where you were and how you got to, let's go.
yeah. I was born, and then I grew up, and that's how I got to be where I am. No,
Okay.
how about that? No, I was born in Chicago, and I don't remember any of it because I was very small. And then I lived there, and my dad worked for the railroad, and so we got transferred every once in a while, based on his work and what he was supposed to be doing for them. And my dad actually had an interesting job because he sold space on boxcars. And so one of his major people that bought from him were the Japanese back then, and this back in the early 70s. And so about 2 years after I was born, we actually moved to Minnesota. He got transferred to Minnesota, and I was there for about 6 years. That was really cool because he'd build ice rinks in the backyard all the time. He'd get his skis out and pat everything down. Back then, we had snow every year, like clockwork, and so we have big snowy winters and the balmy summers that they still have. But then, after about 6 years, we were transferred to Seattle, and then I grew up in the Northwest for most of my years, and it was kind of tumultuous moving at the time I did. I didn't, I moved into, the third grade, second grade. It was weird because of the way that schools went. And I didn't really ever fit in once I moved to the West Coast, and I didn't really make friends really easily. I kind of missed the little cohort that got together in the first grade. I came in the third grade, and they already made their friends, and I didn't quite fit in, and so that was a little bit hard to deal with when I was growing up. But I did most of my growing up till in Seattle area, a little north of Seattle, and that's my early years. I didn't really have a direction or anything like that. I was just trying to figure out how to fit in and never did it very well. So if you don't fit in, you stand out, I guess.
Well, look at you standing out now. You're like, look at me now. Look at me now. And you're helping so many people. It's amazing. But you
Yeah.
had quite a road to get to that place.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's see, where were you? So you're in Seattle. You were in school, struggling. Moving is it's a hard place to keep getting dropped in different schools and moving. And you were Catholic, so you were in a school. So
Yeah.
enough said, right, guys?
Yeah. That it didn't. I didn't really understand what Catholicism was all about, and it's interesting because I would say I am Christian now. I don't know if Christians would call me Christian, but that's
As long as you believe in God,
that
it's
idea.
good.
Hi, Grace, good to see you. But
Yes,
I,
nice.
I never really understood Catholicism, and I had a Benedictine monk that was an uncle of mine, and I didn't get it. It scared the hell out of me. And so I don't think that's how you're supposed to get to heaven, is to have hell scared out of you. But that's kind of my thing, and I always look at the religious kind of thing, and it was just so daunting because I didn't think I could ever really, make the cut, so to speak. And so it just freaked me out, and I just I'm not, I don't understand it. I didn't really understand anything about the Bible, and I didn't understand why I had to talk to this guy in a robe, or the black with the thing, to make me okay. And I think more than anything, I really realized that I probably am like gonna burn in a lake of fire, or go to hell or whatever, because I didn't like any of that, and it scared me, and I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing that was so wrong that I needed to go to penance, or I needed to go and confess. It just didn't make any sense to me. I was a little kid, and that stuff still doesn't really make sense to me. But I've left that, and I left it pretty abruptly. About 12 years old, I just stopped going, and about that time, I really didn't have a whole lot of friends, and I was kind of bullied. And I think being bullied, it's a big problem out in the world today. But honestly, I think it was one of the best things for me, to have a little bit of being bullied, because it taught me that you don't necessarily have to learn to live with that stuff, but you do have to stand up for yourself, and you do have to have an opinion, and you do have to be able to put your flag in the ground, so to speak, and stand up for yourself. And I really learned how to stand up for myself and my opinion in that kind of situation years later. But at that time, it just kind of beat me down. And it didn't feel really good, and I didn't really know how to deal with life on life's terms. And so that's where some of the Cindy, you were kind of um, insinuating in a way that I had a little bit of a rough life, and I created that for myself. I was very good. I believe that we create our own lives, and I created a bad one for me. I started drinking at a very young age. I started checking out of the world, so to speak, and I just didn't really play the game the way it was supposed to be played, as they say. And I started drinking at an early age, like I said. I quit school in the 11th grade because I didn't know. I just, nothing really made sense, and so I just quit school and I started working. And I worked at Jack in the Box for a while, a fast food restaurant kind of thing, and I didn't like that very much. But I mean, it was paying me something, and so that I could go and
Get drunk. Yeah.
get drunk.
Eric's here. He says, "Good evening. God's blessings."
Hi, Eric. Good to see you. Uh,
Yes. And share
yeah,
it out. Share it out, guys. Share it out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting time growing up, and I mean, I pretty much burned out my drinking, and I was doing other stuff at the time, and learning more about the world than anybody should know at that age, and doing some hallucinogenics and some other stuff, and I got really lost, and I think.
Wow.
At 18 years old, I actually went back to my mom. I also, when I quit school, I also kind of ran away. And I went and lived with my best friend, who was, by the way, named Eric. Um, uh,
Good
it
name.
wasn't Eric Florian, but
We got two Erics here. Yeah.
it was a different Eric. But I stayed with him for a while, and I kind of floated around, and just had some other friend groups that were very like me, and drinking and using and doing that type of stuff. And I was really just looking to fit in. And I still didn't know how to stand out. I didn't know how to fit in. I didn't know how to be okay with me. And I always felt like my skin was on fire, and maybe drinking something or smoking some pot would put the fire out. And it never really did. Um, but I ended up getting sober in uh, 1988. And I stayed that way for about 3.5 years. And I still, you know, the way I see everybody seem like they understand life and they understand how to get along with people and stuff. I didn't get that for a long time. I was missing something, and I always felt pretty stupid, and I always felt like I was behind. I didn't get the book that told people how to actually live their life. Um, and I just was always missing some kind of information. And when I got into, I started with a 12-step program. Well, I started with a treatment center and then 12-step program. And that was kind of the thing that was missing for a while. And I started actually working that program and realizing that I had to actually get honest with myself about what was going on. And I had to put my hand up and talk about what I was afraid of, and that was pretty much a one word answer is everything. Um,
Oof.
and I didn't know I didn't know what was going on. Um, and I ran on a lot of different fears, but I never really talked about it. And I always felt like I had to actually be better than I am, and I had to accomplish stuff in order to um, be valid in the world in some way. And that was kind of off. But I stayed sober for about 3.5 years. And during that time, I started to kind of get an idea of what was going on. And I got an idea of that there's a different way to live, but I didn't actually confront a lot of this stuff. And I mean, I had gone to psychologist after psychologist after psychologist. By the way, I am a psychologist, not a psychiatrist. I don't do
Oh,
medicine.
oh, oh, oh. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. But so I went to psychologist after psychologist, and my mom was bringing me there because she could see I wasn't happy and wasn't really digging my life that way. And I'd go and I'd ask them what they thought life was all about and what they thought a friend was, and I'd ask them how they know what they're doing. And
Mhm.
none of them really had great answers. And a lot of times they'd turn it back on me. Well, what is a friend to you? And I'm like, I don't have any. I don't know. Um,
That's why I'm here talking to you.
right? If I had that answer, I'd be good. But it was everything was always elusive, and I didn't know how to fix that hole inside of me, that emptiness, and that's what I really had is an emptiness. And so, when I actually started doing a lot of the different work that they were asking in the 12-step program, the fear that I had when I was younger started coming back, and the fear got bigger than the payoff of being sober. And I started drinking again. And I rationalized it because, well, when I started drinking again, I was 21, and it was about 2 or 3 days after I turned 21. So I didn't even do it on my birthday. But I was like, I think I was just really immature back then. And I think I was really just young and I didn't know about the world. And now I do. And now I'm 21, so I know about the world. So I think I could drink again. And within about 3 or 4 days, I was just as bad as I was before.
Oof.
And I started getting to worse stuff and just not making good decisions and running from me and running from the truth and running from or what I thought was the truth. And the truth that I was running from was that I'm just not a good person and that I don't really have anything to offer. And I just felt empty. I felt alone, and I felt like um, absolute despair and discouragement around being able to be any kind of success. And so went back out, started drinking again, and it was just as miserable as before. But and at that time I was a mechanic, was working on cars, and I was okay. I was ASC certified for brakes and front ends, and I got that as a vocational rehab kind of thing that my mom got me into when I first got sober in 1988. And I worked for Firestone Tires, and I learned how to do a lot of stuff. But
So
you
you're
know,
smart. You're very smart, obviously.
uh, that's what they say. From this side of the glasses, I don't feel as smart all the time. I'm like, um, but I always took myself way too seriously back then too, and I had to be the best at what I was doing, and that really hasn't that excellence hasn't left me, but it's over the years been reshaped into I want to be excellent for other people instead of to try to prove myself. And so my drive for excellence is to be able to be of service to people now, rather than to prove that I'm worth something. Uh, but yeah, right. And so when I finally I quit being a mechanic because it was too cold outside and I couldn't stand it, and I had an injury on my hand that made it very difficult to use the tools and stuff. So I was like, I'm not doing this anymore, and ran away from that too, and it just wasn't working. Started drinking again, and that didn't really go anywhere. But while I was doing it, I moved down to Las Vegas, and I was playing around in Las Vegas, and that was probably a bad idea. And then I was like, maybe the car thing is a good idea. And so I decided to go to school for it, and then I would learn, and then I would be even better than I was before. And school lasted about 6 months before I could actually, um, before I ended up burning out of that idea. And I was a chronic quitter, and move and try to do something else and go find new friends. And I mean, I was a mess. I was an absolute mess. But during that time, I realized cars weren't for me, but I do like food and I do like warm kitchens. And so I decided I was in between things and I needed to make money and I knew how to work on cars. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go work in a kitchen. Applebee's, not a good idea. But I went to Applebee's and I got a job because I was going to earn $300 to get my license reinstated so I can work on cars. This is a crazy story. I don't know how I got here, but so I went and started working in the kitchen, and I was like, you know what? This is warm, and I'm thinking about going and working on cars and get paid somewhere relatively similar. Um, and be freezing outside. I don't want to do that anymore. And by this time, I had actually kind of burned out my bridges and had a bunch of bad stuff happen in Vegas and had a bunch of bad stuff. I went down to Arizona and had a bunch of bad stuff happen there. So ran back to the Northwest where it was cold. And I had this idea that I was going to work on cars outside again. I was like, this is crazy. So got a job at Applebee's, worked there for a little while. I fell in love with cooking because um, I was really, it just kind of was something that clicked with me and I was really good at it. And it was warm and I like warm. And so I was like, I'm going to be a cook. And within about 9 months, I had managed to piss off the guy that was running the kitchen. And he didn't really want me to work there anymore because I kept calling him out on his behavior. Like I was the paragon of behavior at that. But, I've always been kind of direct and kind of, a disturbance in people's worlds if they didn't do things the way I thought they should. And so he ended up firing me, and I went down to one of the better restaurants in our area at that time. And I walked in and I said, "Hey, I'm probably the best cook you'll ever see. You should hire me." And the guy was like, "All right, I'll give you a shot." And
Sweet.
right. And I went in and I ended up keeping
Wow.
that job for about 5 years. And that job was probably the biggest blessing I had in my life up to that point. And I was not sober. I had probably been drinking and using for about 2.5 years at that point, again. And I found out later that the guy just wanted to see if I was full of crap or not, or see how full of crap I was when I went in there. And then when I was in there, he was like, he's a jerk, but he's pretty good. And so he kept me, and he made me his little project, and that was kind of a bad idea for him, but it was good for me because I stayed there for a while, and then I ended up getting a DUI, and this was 1995, and I got a DUI. I had an actual bad drinking incident a little bit earlier in that year, where I had what they call an esophageal bleed. And that's kind of a come to Jesus moment, because when you're an alcoholic or when you have a heavy drinking problem, a lot of times the esophagus can't take the amount of alcohol you're drinking, and it tears. And so I had that happen to me, and I was like, I got to get that fixed. I didn't know it was happening, but I ended up going to the hospital because I was puking up blood. Gross. Sorry. But it was really bad. And so I went to the doctor, or the hospital, and they fixed me up and said, don't do that ever again. And I said, I won't ever do that again. And the next couple of days I was drinking again, because, well, I was, you know, trying to cope with life, cope with me. I had to live with me. It's terrible. And so about 4 more months, 5 more months, I was doing that, and then I got a DUI, and sitting in the jail cell, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know how to live my life. I don't know how to be happy. I don't know how to be okay with me. I'm in fear for my job all of the time because I just keep telling myself, no matter when I show up, they're going to fire me. No matter how good I am. And at this time, I'm like in the company, and I'm training all of the people on how to actually work what they call the wood grill broiler kind of thing. and I was training everybody in the company, and I was working at a bunch of different restaurants, and I had this total, just a terror that no matter what, they're going to find out and fire me, and I don't know what they were going to find out. Just it's just the idea in my head, and so I sound like I'm really put together here, don't I? But
Well, this is how miracles are made, right?
right, and so I got the DUI, and then somehow somebody bailed me out, and I found out later that it was a friend of mine who worked in the restaurant, who I didn't know. He found out I got the DUI and I was in jail, but he bailed me out, and he went to the ownership of the restaurant, and this is going to get me a little misty, but he went to them and told them that I was having a real hard time, and that he wanted me protected, and he wanted me to go from the restaurant that I was working at, that he would he would go in there just to call the wheel, which is basically pull the tickets and then make sure the food goes out. And he'd do that every Friday and Saturday night. But his restaurant that he usually worked at was about 15 miles away, in the same business, the same company, different restaurant. But he said, I want him to be moved up to my restaurant. I want to mentor him, and I want to help him. And
Good guy.
good guy, saved my life. But
Ooh,
the day that I got out of the jail cell, I had a little conversation with God, and it went basically like, look, I don't know if you exist, and I'm scared to death that you don't, and I'm scared to death that you do, because the idea that I have is this Catholic thing, and it doesn't make sense. But if I'm not supposed to be here, just kill me, because I don't know how to do this. And if I am, show me how to live.
wow.
And I got out of there, and I went back to the 12-step meetings, and I just raised my hand and said, I don't know how to live my life. And that was about 28 years ago, give or take. Um, and ever since then, it was like something switched in me, and I started seeing the good things about me. And I started seeing that one person believed in me, and I'm going to borrow his belief in me and start making the changes. It's starting to make me misty. But
Powerful.
yeah, and from there, I was still kind of a pain in the butt to deal with, because I had my idea about how things should be, um, and I couldn't live up to them, and nobody else could either. And so, as I actually started working the program that is outlined in that 12-step program, I started to have a little bit more of a sense of humor about myself, and I don't take myself so seriously. And I stopped beating myself up so much, and I stopped having that. This is how things have to be done, and it's like this might be a goal, but I started softening quite a bit, and I started understanding the idea that um, the tenet of the program that I was a part of is you're powerless over alcohol, or you're powerless over drugs, and your life has become manageable. Well, I kind of went one step further. So I'm powerless over my head talking to me about this stuff and giving me that idea is a good one. And I'm powerless over those ideas coming in. But what I'm not powerless over is putting my hand up and saying I need help. And so I learned how to ask for help. And then the second part of that is I really learned how to actually start accepting help.
Hmm.
And, in the 28 years I've been sober now, the one thing that I've seen
Speak
from
for you.
everybody that walks into that program, or everybody that walks into a situation where they're struggling with something, a lot of people are really good at asking for help, but they're very, very, they don't, unfortunately, accept help very well. What people tend to do, and it's not purposeful, but they tend to actually reject the help, and then they make us feel as powerless as they're feeling, and they're really being empathic without realizing it, but unconsciously they're trying to make people feel as powerless as they do, so they reject the ideas and reject the help and stay stuck, and invite us to be stuck with them. And that's classically what I did for years. Is like, that's not going to work, that's not going to work. Oh, you're a psychologist, well, you don't have the answers. And I make everybody feel as powerless as I was. Well, that's, if there's an epidemic in the world, or a pandemic in the world, I think not accepting help is much more of a pandemic than COVID was, because we really render the people in our lives powerless to help us, trying to help them understand that we feel powerless. Um, anyway, so for me, when I was doing that, I going to the meetings and working the program and starting to learn how to accept help, my life started to change. And I started looking at myself and all of those things that I was afraid to look at years before. When I got to that place of looking at what was going on with me, I started to do the inventory that they suggest and really look at me and look at my emotions and look at my behaviors and look at how my thinking actually caused a lot of my problems in my life, and avoiding my emotions caused every problem in my life because I wasn't connected to me and I was just going off of whatever the thinking was. And so learning how to slow down and share my thinking with people so they go, hey, yeah, where'd you come up with that? And start having a group of people that was a sounding board. Um, and that, yeah, absolutely. Hardest thing is to ask for help. It's really easy for a lot of people to ask for help. It's the hard piece is the accept it. And like Eric just said in the chat, closed mouth don't get fed. That there was a friend of mine named Eugene that used to walk around the restaurant saying that all the time. He's like, closed mouth don't get fed. You got to ask for what you want. And when I learned that, it's like, oh wow, this is almost a spiritual principle there. Ask for what you want, and then be willing to believe that you already have the ability to have it, and things can come. And you know what? I do agree that Cynthia is a great listener. Um,
Thank you, Grace. Thank you.
very true.
Well, it's such a compelling story. How can you not be? I mean, wow. Wow.
Yeah, and so about 2 years into being sober, working that program, and learning actually how to have relationships and learning how to be a worker among workers and learning how to be a friend, and learning what a friend was super powerful. And then my chef at the time said, "You have done the work, and we want to talk about next steps for you." And he asked me what I wanted to do, and he was fully expecting, and I was fully expecting to say I'd like to go into the sous chef program and become a sous chef, and which in the restaurant business, sous chef is basically number two, and you're the assistant manager of the kitchen kind of idea if we're going to use management terms, but it's second chef kind of idea. And so he got me sitting down there, and I'm sitting down there, and we're ready to have this conversation. He goes, "What do you think you want to do next?" And I said, "I think I want to go to school." And I was like, "Who said that?" And he goes, "You did." And I was like, "Whoa, I think I want to become a psychologist," which is really weird because I couldn't stand any of the psychologists I went to.
That's
But
why I need to fix them.
right, I'm going to go show them. But he's like, "Is that what you really want to do?" And I said, "I think it is."
Wow.
And I don't know where it came from. It just came from somewhere in here. And so yeah, I think I want to become a psychologist. And so he's like, "Well, if that's what you want to do, you should go do that. And you have a place here. You'll always have a home here. But if that's what you want to do, go do it." And so I was like, "Okay, so what do I do?" And then he's like, "Well, I think you got to apply to college." And so he gave me some suggestions, and so I was like, "I'm going to do that." So I applied. I applied to a Christian college down in Newberg, Oregon, and it was 3 or 4 weeks before the semester starts, and you got to be accepted, and then you got to do all these things, and I got in. I wrote a letter saying this, and my chef and the guy who actually bailed me out of jail both wrote letters saying that this guy's a good guy and solid, and they let me in. And I started 5 weeks later in a psychology program down there, and I went to that school and I learned how to write from a more structured kind of way that was really essay writing in the creative world, but it wasn't really creative writing as much as reading creative stories and then giving an analysis of it kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I wasn't very good at that, but I got really good at it. And then I did 2 years at that school, and then I transferred down to USC, and I finished my degree in the University of Southern California for a BA in psychology. And then during that time, I started working with severely emotionally disturbed kids, and I saw how they reminded me of what I felt like when I was younger. And I would never want to call myself severely emotionally disturbed, but I sure wasn't doing great. Um, but I watched these kids have real problems with identifying and sharing their emotions, and they'd have tantrums and they'd blow up. And I mean, I was right there with them. I had the same kind of thing, only instead of blowing up on people, I drink. And so, this is probably about 5, 6 years sober. I was working with these kids and realizing that this is what I actually wanted to address in myself. I wanted to understand what was going on with them and be able to help more people with that.
That's
And
great.
so I ended up going to grad school for that. Just like I told my chef, is like, I want to become a psychologist. And so I got my BA, and then I went to two schools, and I applied to both schools to get in, and both of them took me. And I had my eyes set on this one school, which was the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, that was a satellite place in California. And then the other was a little school that just opened up, and they were promising that they were going to be a really good depth psychology school, and they were going to do a lot with helping you to really understand the depth of like object relations and Freudian psychology, and understand the whole process by which psychology has become what it is today. And at the same time, they have a really strong testing and assessment program. And I was like, I don't know what this school is, but for some reason, I want to do that. And they let me in, and I was
Wow.
excited to go there. And it was the best education that I think anybody could get. It was amazing. And Dr. Mark Lubin was the guy who ran the whole program. And that guy was amazing, and he understood things about psychology and about understanding people, and taught me those things. And the whole staff there was amazing, and they really really cared about making sure that I understood theory and understanding why they were going about what they were doing and how they were going about doing what they were doing. And
Mm.
it was a 4 year program. It was 3 years of study, and then 1 year of pre-doctoral internship, and then a postdoc. But I added a year because I wanted to make sure that I was really getting everything I could, and I was putting off my dissertation. A little bit of both. But
Mm.
best education I could ever get. And then I really started to understand what was going on with the kids, and my focus became attachment psychology, because it made the most sense out of what was going on with what I saw these severely emotionally disturbed kids, and by the way, what was going on with me when I was younger. And it wasn't so much, I had parents, and they were great parents, and they were there for me, and everything, but I didn't trust them.
Mm.
And I didn't trust being open with them, and I protected against them. And the whole idea that I learned, and I began learning in my my doctoral program, when we looked at attachment, is this idea. And the central theme is basically, we all as human beings have an overwhelming need to connect. Well, especially when we're kids, like it's a priority to connect and have a connection with somebody, and at the same time an undercurrent of fear of rejection, and the in concert together, this overwhelming desire to connect, while at the same time protecting ourselves from rejection, is where a lot of our anxiety and a lot of our problems come from. And so I geeked out on all of this information, and I learned, 17 different theories of how the different theorists put together what they did. And I kind of put all of that stuff together and created or generated or synthesized my own kind of theory of attachment and how attachment based psychology really makes sense. And I
Wow.
have a cognitive way of thinking about it, but it's really emotion based. Um, and then, funny enough, I ended up working in a prison system for my pre-doc and my post-doc, and then I was there for a couple of years after that, working with highly aggressive and dangerous inmates, and I did that for about 5 years, and that got me to a place where I really started to understand the volatility of emotion and the volatility of behavior when emotion isn't dealt with, or when emotion isn't identified and worked out. And so it's funny because those inmates were actually the same severely emotionally disturbed kids growing up into highly aggressive people who didn't deal with things very well. And, you know, it was a revelation. It was like, oh, okay, so this is where those kids go if they don't get help. Um, and it's very interesting. Um, the
Look what Grace says, Terry. This is among the most important of Cynthia's podcasts. Terry Wager is living a life more important than acquisition and self promotion. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the words.
That is
Um,
powerful.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so are you. My goodness.
yeah,
You.
and so the funny thing is working with these kids when I was in the prison system, especially when I first started. They're like, you just go, they put me in the lockup unit where all of the people who had problems getting along with everybody in the prison went to, and so the jail within the jail kind of thing. And I thought it was because I was amazing, and it
You
turned
are.
out that, well, right, but I thought that was the primary reason. But then I looked at all the other interns, and that was my internship to go down to this prison in the prison, and I looked at all of the other interns, and there was 9 of us that were interning there, and there was 3 really old people, and then um, actually there was 7 at my place and 2 in Stockton. I was in Ione, California at that time. So there's 7 of us, and there was 3 that were really older, 65, 70-year-olds that retrained and became psychologists and that type of thing. And then there was me, and then there was uh, 3 younger people that didn't really have what I had growing up with my background and that type of thing. And so um, it turns out that they were just really worried about those 6 being on that unit, and they weren't so worried about me because I could handle my own kind of thing. And so I actually got that spot out of default, not because of my awesomeness,
I
which
don't
was a
know about
humbling
that.
kind of
If you
thing.
didn't have the awesomeness, you wouldn't have been here because you wouldn't have been able to handle it.
Yeah, yeah. But it was funny because I was like, they think I'm great. Wait, no, I'm just the one best qualified to not die there. Um, but
You're so hard on yourself.
it's kind of funny. And I mean, Rule 62: don't take yourself so seriously. And I'm not really hard on myself. It's just funny. Because I really did have a big head, like, oh, I got chose for that. I got chose for the really well. I kind of fit in with them. If you look at my background, I could relate to them much better than the old people. Um, and so I get on this unit. The first thing they do is they go get a stab proof vest. I'm like, what?
Whoa.
Yeah, to be on this unit, you have to have that. You cannot talk to any of these people or be in the halls without it. And so that was like, oh, okay, well, okay, I'll put one of these on. Very, very interesting. But the reality is that those guys that were uh, the inmates on those 2 were so activated and so emotional and aggressive and violent, out of fear of being harmed themselves, that they would strike first. And I watched while I was there, a lot of fights happen and a lot of bad decisions made by these inmates. But they were also telling me that I can't do therapy there. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. The problem is that for my pre-doc internship and my post-doc internship, I need 1,500 hours of therapy experience with actual therapeutic intervention and clients. And that's what I'm dealing with. So we can't just leave them in the cells. I actually have to have them come out and talk to me. And they're like, it's not going to do any good. These guys are never going to change. You know, the whole thing that, you know, people don't change, and you can't change, the leopard doesn't change the spots and all that stuff. And these are just bad kids, bad seed and everything. And within a year, they actually had me work with the chief psychologist of the Department of Justice, Juvenile Justice, because it was a juvenile detention. And we developed a behavior treatment program, is what they called it, but it was really my emotional mastery stuff. And we labeled it behavior because emotion they wouldn't actually do, but we got these kids actually talking about what was going on with them and really releasing some of that stuff. And I had before they adopted the program, I had about 15 guys that I was seeing weekly that ended up going and getting therapy, and that they would thought would never actually make changes in their life, and they were dropping out of the gang, they were getting into fire camp, they were changing their lives. It was amazing. And they decided to actually shut down the 23 and 1 lockdowns. And 23 and 1 lockdown, for those people that don't know, is 23 hours in a cell where they're locked down, and then 1 hour outside where they're in a cell outside that is the same size as their cell inside, that they exercise in, and their exercise was walking around in circles. But it was out in the sun. And that was the way that they were housing these guys, the highly aggressive guys. And so what happened is they actually took my program and they took all of these guys out of those lockdown cells and put them into another house, or it was another cell kind of configuration that wasn't locked down. And they reformatted the whole thing, and I had two groups of 50 guys that I was overseeing, doing therapeutic groups with all of these guys at once. And it was highly successful, and they stopped fighting and they stopped going after each other. And
Yeah.
it was super weird to see all of these guys that were like gang affiliated and locked into these gangs. And I mean, even the shot callers, and they're like, don't tell anybody on the hill where they're still fighting, but we want to stay down here. We don't want to go back there. We like this much better. Because they started learning how to actually have relationships, and they started learning how to have a relationship with themselves first, and then have relationships with the other people. And
Mm.
it was, you know, definitely a God thing. But really what I was teaching them is what I learned myself on how to actually, you know, raise your hand and say, I don't know what I'm doing, and I need help, and accept the help and start looking at themselves. And they started doing the same thing I did. And so I did that for about 5 years, and then they closed the prison. We had that program working for about 2 years. They closed the prison, and then I moved back up to Oregon, where I'm still in Oregon now, and that was about 2010. And at that time, I decided I was going to move into private practice and see what else I could do. Um, and very quickly, I started working with people who own businesses, and I noticed that the inmates that were highly aggressive had kind of a similar drive, but very, very unhealthy behavior for what they're doing, as to people that own businesses. The same drive, but the people who own businesses had a lot better ways of coping with things, and they weren't hurting other people or anything. But the drive within them to succeed and the drive within them to achieve was very similar. And so I was like, I think I want to work with businesses, and that's how I got into working with businesses. And within the first couple of years of doing that, I started helping people develop $1 million businesses, and understand how to actually bring people in that would work with them, and learn how to use their emotions to be able to influence people, and to build people and to build teams rather than create divisiveness by being hard asses in their business or whatever. And I just found that working with that type population was much better than doing therapy and working with families and stuff. I was kind of burned out on that, and I wanted a challenge, and so I moved into businesses full time, and I've been doing that from probably about 2014 to now, and we've moved into working with actual creating the culture in companies and organizational health, and a lot of what I do is working with the business owners and the leaders to really go ahead.
I want you to read
Yeah,
Grace's comment here. Terry
I
Wager has made a contribution to society. That is the definition of success.
yes.
We only
Thank
own
you.
our deeds. Everything else is borrowed. Magnificent. Thank you, Grace. That's
And
so beautiful.
I still work with people without charging them for getting sober and things like that, and I still do a lot of uh, helping people without businesses, and I use my work with my businesses to actually fuel my life so I can go do this um, for free for people who need it. And I work with a group called the Push Movement, which is actually one of my clients years and years ago. Um, uh, we were working together, and he ended up getting sober with my influence, evidently. That's what he says anyway. He might be lying, but he says I influenced him a lot, or I tricked him into sobriety. I don't know how he put it. He's got a story, but he was a pro skateboarder, and he wanted to give back to the community, and he realized that there wasn't a whole lot out there for the 12-step programs. Um, Once somebody gets sober, what do they do? And he's like, I'm going to create a community of skateboarders that is sober and clean and talking about living a good life. And I'm going to invite people who are newly sober and, in fact, younger people before they get into the problem of drugs and alcohol, and let them know that they have a very safe place to explore and learn about themselves as they have a good, fun activity to do. And it's called the Push Movement. And so I'm on the board of the Push Movement as an advisor and a strategist to help them know how to actually grow their deal. And very good friend of mine. And so that's some of the ways I give back. But as far as my work, I started really realizing that there was a big need in businesses to have a culture shift and to really help people become more engaged as employees and help the leadership to know how to actually get the employee engagement by being more vulnerable, by being open and diving into conflict in a healthy way, and working with businesses that way. So that's what I currently do, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to that. Um, I feel like I talked a lot.
That was fantastic. Are those prison systems still working?
The prison actually had a big that the prison was down in California, and during the time I was there, they were going through basically bankruptcy on a really large level in the government, and so my prison actually shut down. My program kind of got dismantled, and that's when I kind of it's time for me to move on and do some other things. So the program actually did not survive that, but there was a lot of people that gained from it, and um, it was unfortunate. But yeah, that program shut down. The whole prison did, and they kind of moved everybody out to different places. Um, so sad, but true.
Yeah, but it's such a good program. Someone else could get it going because I think it's still needed.
Yeah, it's definitely needed. And there's prison ministries out there, and there's some other groups that really do um, a lot for that. And um, I really appreciate those programs, and I've been in touch with over the years different people who are doing prison programs and things like that, and I've talked to them here and there about it, but I just felt led in a different direction. So yeah, and right now, currently with Generator, my company, Generator Coaching Consulting, Christine is my life partner, and she worked for Starbucks for 19 years, putting in teams and developing teams. And she'd go into a Starbucks that was underperforming, and she'd go in as a shift supervisor, and she'd start managing the other shift supervisors, and then showing the manager how she actually changed the culture. And so she would go in, and within about a year, she'd change the store's atmosphere from being okay to being one of the most productive and efficient and uh, great stores to be in that area. And she went from underperforming to outperforming everything in the group. And so it was very fun. And it seems we have lost. There you are. Like it seems we have lost Cynthia. Where did you go? Don't abandon me.
It was me, not with a story this good.
And so she actually worked in Starbucks as a turnaround specialist for a number of years. And in 2018, she left Starbucks and joined me. And so now we actually do that for franchises. We work with Subway, a number of Subways, helping them to actually get their teams working better together. And we work with, uh, you know, we work with all kinds of different businesses, but we like the franchises because they already have systems, but they need people to get along and align and commit to the systems. And so we like those groups a lot. So we're doing a lot of different work with basic culture, and we call it organizational health. One of our mentors that we've learned from is Patrick Lencioni, and he Five Dysfunctions of a Team and Working Genius, and a number of other books that Ideal Team Player and
And your book, Quit Taking Your Own Bad Advice.
I've got that right here.
There's
Yeah,
this book, and it's available on Amazon. It's actually on sale right now, so you could pick it up. And keep
yeah,
some
it's
wisdom,
a good
put it by
book.
your bedside.
Yeah, or you can read it. Yeah, either way. And what that book is really about, quit taking your own bad advice, is the premise is we have a filter in our head that is a protective filter, and we listen to it much more than a faith based kind of still small voice in ourselves, and or the God inside of us, however you want to put it. But we listen to that filter so much that we end up living in protection instead of vulnerability. And the idea of organizational health is the more vulnerable and open we become as leaders, the more we actually influence our people underneath us and that are in our team to become vulnerable and talk about the things that are going on, so we can actually have better adoption of systems and better adoption of a culture that we're looking to grow. And so that's kind of what my book is about. I get much more into the one person kind of idea. I have a filter in my head that looks at things as protection. And if everybody's doing that and everybody's protecting themselves, it's very hard to work together. And
Mhm.
so what we want to do is we want to become more vulnerable. We want to become more coachable and walk into every relationship in a coachable, open place. And I don't know if anybody's ever walked into a situation where you're like, I think I need help, but I'm very skeptical of that. And we want to let go of the skepticism, and we want to open up to, okay, what can I learn from this situation? And how am I wrong about wanting to protect myself? What do I have to learn from this situation? And so when we can do that, we start to actually have a very, very good experience of growth and really spiritual and emotional maturity, when we can go, wait, I don't need to protect myself. I need to open myself to this experience. And that's what my book is about. And then our work is about showing each person how to quit taking their own bad advice and start becoming more open to the group and how we work together.
This will work in the whole universe.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
amazing. It's
yeah.
amazing. And you are amazing. I am amazing. We are
You are
amazing.
amazing.
There's
Um,
a little
I,
cute.
I'll say I met Cynthia in a group that we're a part of, and Ken Walls runs that group, and he is amazing.
Yes.
And we spent some time at his event called the Ken and Glenn Show.
Mastermind.
Yeah,
Oh, it's fabulous. You have to come join us for the next one.
yeah, and actually, I got to spend some time with Cynthia and a bunch of other people who are just amazing, and really on kind of the same emotional plane of existence, really wanting personal growth and personal development. And Ken was amazing, and Glenn Morshower was amazing, and I'm just super glad to be a part of that group of people and be around you and around them. And so. I got to share my story tonight, which I thank you. I didn't know I was going to be talking as much. I thought you were going to ask me some questions, but I guess I
Exciting. You are on a roll, and
dominated the airwaves.
it's fabulous. It is fabulous.
And I don't often share my story at that linear kind of thing. I share little bits and things like that, but it was fun to actually just kind of go through from beginning to end where I've been. So thank you for having me, and thank you for asking me that one question to start it all off. Um, but yeah, it's amazing, and we love the Christine and I love to help businesses grow, and we love to help teams work better together. And it's what we really like to do. And so thank you for having me on the show. Uh,
And here's Eric's little comment, a real example of life beyond what we can get, but being a giver. Good stuff. Thanks to you both. Yes, it's all about giving. It's all about
Absolutely.
giving.
Beyond amazing. Phenomenal.
And
Uh,
being
yeah.
amazing, because if you're amazing every day and you're with your tribe that is amazing, picking the good people out
Yes.
to move up with and to keep growing, to keep being amazing with, and having the safe space of people that you can call at any time and go, hey, hey, I need a little help here. Oopsie.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I just really appreciate about Ken is Ken has created a little community of people who are all on that same level of being there for each other. And really, I haven't experienced something like that in the business world to the degree that he has created it. And the only place that I've really actually experienced that at that level is the 12-step meetings I was a part of. And it's got a real feel of connectedness and appreciation for each other as human beings, and not just what can you do for me, but it's what can I do for you.
Yes. How can I get your word out? How can I let other people know what you have to offer so that their businesses can run more fluidly and
Mhm.
it's a safe space? So that all lots of people have great ideas and it's not a safe space, so they just keep it with them and it dies and they're missing the whole opportunity to make the business even better, or to
Yeah,
get that Subway sandwich properly made, or to keep the
absolutely.
people that work there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, yeah, this has been super fun.
Thank you. You were amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. I know you're gonna go cook up some beautiful dinner right now for Christine. I look forward to meeting her in the future.
Absolutely.
It seems like she's got, the same kind of magic wand that you keep hidden underneath your desk.
Yeah, she's very good at what she does too. Yes,
Awesome. Those good people. I'm glad you have such a good person to be with you, and
absolutely.
keep the joy and the magic and the
Yeah,
humor being.
humor being. Yes. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.